Copper dusk settles over Helmand province near Sangin as the air turns heavy and close. The narrow wadi the locals call Chalk Gate runs like a wind tunnel of dust. The kind that dries your mouth and stings your eyes. Rock walls swallow radio calls until they fade into static. And every footfall or burst sounds like a muffled thud. The valley feels tight, like it wants to close around anyone who lingers too long. On the floor of the wadi, a Marine Raiders element holds with an Afghan partner force, pressed against cover. Interlocking fire angles from terraces and ridgelines rake the approaches and keep heads low. A man-portable air defense threat waits for the first mistake. So, the MH-47G helicopters hold outside the valley where they can breathe. The clock is not friendly here, and the dust keeps its own time. Higher Headquarters has issued a restrictive order that prohibits fixed-wing fires inside the wadi until positive identification is certain and collateral risk is under control. Into that order flies Captain Lauren Hale of the United States Air Force in an A-10C, call sign Havoc 17. She is weapons school, trained for close air support, and known for strict trigger discipline when others would lean on noise. Some on the net expect her to circle for a show of force and little more. Fighting through static. The Joint Terminal Attack Controller is Gunnery Sergeant Ryan Cole. Steady and clipped on the radio. He holds terminal control and authorizes danger close under Type 2 with his initials. Then works to keep headings clean and the airspace safe. Wounded are fading. Ammunition is running low. And radios are fragmenting as batteries and nerves drain together. The promise ahead is simple and hard. That an extraction corridor will be carved by procedure, clear communication, and timing. Not by breaking rules or gambling with lives. The wadi, near Sangin, is narrow and bent. So, line of sight breaks in every direction. Rock faces scatter radio energy until calls fade into static and half words. Sound lands as a dull thud and lifts as dust, which turns distance into a guess. It is the kind of ground where a mistake hides inside the terrain and waits for someone to rush. Enemy gun teams hold the kill zone with PKM or heavy machine guns set behind rocks and low walls. Spotters watch from the higher terraces and adjust fire with quiet handoffs. A man-portable air defense threat sits like a locked door on the approach. So the MH-47G Chinook package holds outside the valley and waits for a clean corridor. The weather is not the problem here. The geometry is. Pressure from higher headquarters is clear and specific. Fixed-wing fires inside the wadi are restricted until positive identification is certain and collateral risk is under control. The Marine Raiders element with an Afghan partner force is running low on ammunition and managing casualties while keeping a tight perimeter. They lean on their Joint Terminal Attack Controller to keep terminal control over any fires and to protect the friendlies with clean clearance and steady updates. Captain Lauren Hale, in an A-10C, carries a practical mix for close air support. GAU 8, a 30mm for suppression. AGM-65 Maverick for priority threats at standoff. And APKWS rockets for tight effects near the mouth of the corridor. Her plan is simple and strict. Suppression first. Precision second. Then tight effects where the approach will be most exposed. Deconfliction is the spine of the plan, not an afterthought. Final attack headings are set and briefed. Altitude blocks are assigned, and an airspace coordination area gives fixed wing and rotary a shared slice of sky without risk. The MH-47G team will not push until the corridor is declared green and the headings are respected. This is by the book, shaped by procedures and timing, and not a story about breaking orders. Higher headquarters restricts fixed-wing fires inside the wadi because positive identification is uncertain and collateral risk is real. The terrain breaks line of sight, hides movement, and scatters sound, which makes every call less certain than it feels. Urgency pushes hard. Yet, the law of armed conflict and rules of engagement hold the line. The need to act fast becomes a wall that demands proof, clean geometry, and control before any release. Some voices on the net treat Captain Lauren Hale in the A-10C as a presence asset good for show of force. The Marine Raiders with their Afghan partner force do not have that luxury. They are taking casualties and watching ammunition run down while the valley tightens around them. What they need is not noise. They need fire that is lawful, timely, and exact. The Joint Terminal Attack Controller carries that burden in rough terrain and heavy static. He chooses Type 2 control because the aircraft cannot keep eyes on through the rock and dust. He provides danger close with initials on record and sets clear final attack headings that protect friendly positions. He keeps terminal control before each trigger press and updates the picture as dust settles and targets reappear. Captain Hale refuses to break orders and chooses process instead. She rebuilds clean communications, requests a full 9-line, and reads back lines 4 and 6 along with every restriction. She confirms airspace coordination areas, establishes altitude blocks, and deconflicts with the rotary hold to carve a lawful corridor outside the restricted zone. She sets time on target or time to target, so suppression, precision, and the helicopter window align. The tension lives in restraint, verified targeting, and precise timing, not in a reckless gamble. This is close air support as it is meant to be. Careful, disciplined, and real. Captain Lauren Hale is a United States Air Force captain in an A-10C built for close air support. Weapons school training shaped the way she thinks and the way she flies. Her reputation is strict trigger discipline and steady hands when radios get thin. She carries the mission set with a calm that sounds like brevity on the net and feels like clarity in the cockpit. Earlier in her career, she pushed back on a shortcut culture and paid for it with time on the sidelines. The lesson cut deep and stayed. Real courage, she decided, is restraint under pressure and the will to hold fire until the picture is clean. That belief travels with her in every checklist, every sensor sweep, and every pass. Inside the wadi, she runs her own quiet math. One wrong assumption could put friendlies at risk or turn dust into tragedy. She trusts the Joint Terminal Attack Controller to hold terminal control and call Type 2 with danger close when needed. She respects the rules of engagement because they guard lives as surely as armor and because they keep the mission lawful and clear. So she chooses to build the corridor by the book instead of chasing a dramatic moment. She asks for a full 9-line, confirms restrictions, and keeps final attack headings inside the briefed window. Altitude blocks and the airspace coordination area give her room to work with the helicopters without risk. She accepts the professional risk that comes with precision and patience, knowing that the right timing and a clean readback can matter more than a loud pass. In this valley, quiet courage in the cockpit is what brings people home. Static bites at the edges of every word as Captain Lauren Hale works the net to find the Joint Terminal Attack Controller. She steadies her voice, and the A-10C settles into a hold north of the wadi, where the rock breaks line of sight. Gunnery Sergeant Ryan Cole answers with calm control despite the terrain. He confirms Type 2 control. Danger close, authorized with his initials, and a final attack heading window between 90 and 120 to protect the friendlies. Hale requests a full 9-line, and the talk-on is crisp, anchored to features a pilot can see from altitude. She reads back lines 4 and 6, then every restriction without hurry. Airspace coordination areas are confirmed, altitude blocks are assigned, and deconfliction with the MH-47G hold is clean. The plan builds toward order that can withstand dust and pressure. Time becomes a tool rather than an enemy. They set time on target or time to target, so suppression, precision, and the helicopter commit window will meet at the same point. Hale briefs that fixed-wing fires will remain north of the wadi, while the corridor is shaped outside the restricted zone. The goal is a lawful lane that rotary can trust on the first descent. In the cockpit, the flow is short and real. Master arm to arm. Gun profile set for GAU-8, a 30mm at low rate with 1 to 2 second bursts. AGM-65 Maverick, prepared with uncage and a steady track. APKWS selected with laser code 1688 and timing for lays-on. IFF checked. Attack geometry aligned to the cleared headings. And an egress plan to stay outside the man-portable air defense engagement zone. Hale coordinates with the rotary flight lead, so Chalk 1 will push at +045 and Chalk 2 at +110 when the corridor is held. Clearances stay simple and exact, with the controller holding terminal control before each release, and a firm cleared as briefed when conditions are met. After each pass, the controller delivers a short battle damage assessment that confirms effects and protects friendlies. By the end of this sequence, the corridor is a product of procedures, timing, and clean communication, not a broken rule or a gamble. Captain Lauren Hale calls in from the east with a clean talk on and a steady tone. The A-10C settles into the cleared window from 90 to 120 with the wadi off her left. She confirms friendlies, target, and restrictions, then brings the nose to the mark. The egress will be north to keep clear of the man-portable air defense engagement zone. Master arm is set to arm, and the gun is selected on low rate. The Pipper sits stable as she mines dive angle and airspeed inside the briefed range. She squeezes for 1 to 2 seconds and lets the gun speak in a tight rhythm. The sound is heavy but contained, more a measured hammer than a spray. Gunnery Sergeant Ryan Cole holds terminal control with danger, close initials already on file. He clears as briefed, and then keeps the updates short. Battle damage assessment comes fast and calm. Gun team suppressed, and no movement on the flank. Hale reads the picture, confirms no friendlies affected, and sets for a re-attack only if the geometry remains clean. She applies re-attack standards, like a metronome. Before every trigger press, she reconfirms target location, friendly positions, and all restrictions. She flies the headings, squeezes for a 1 to 2 second burst, and calls off with altitude and direction to keep deconfliction intact. The jet climbs into the egress, and the valley folds back into dust. Terrain masks can hide movement, so she uses timing and spacing between passes. She lets the dust settle and gives the controller room to refresh the talk on. When the picture firms up, she presents again from the east and holds the window with the same restraint. The corridor strengthens because each pass is exact and brief. The gun team that anchored the kill zone is pinned, and the spotters hesitate. Suppression is doing what it is meant to do, shaping space rather than chasing spectacle. The safe lane begins to live in real terms, a slice of sky and ground held by discipline. The corridor remains green for the next phase of precision fires and the rotary timeline, all inside real close air support procedures and language. The priority threat shows on a ridgeline that leans over the planned corridor. A small launcher team setting up where it can rake the approach. The Joint Terminal Attack Controller paints the scene with a clear talk on that a pilot can see from an A-10C. Rock spurs, a pale notch, a cut line of scrub. He confirms Type 2 control and danger close with his initials, then restates final attack headings between 90 and 120. The aircraft will remain north of the wadi to protect friendlies and keep the geometry clean. Captain Lauren Hale chooses a Maverick from safe standoff because the range is long and the backstop is hard rock. She uncages, waits for a steady track, and confirms positive identification while cross-checking the position of friendlies. Airspeed and dive angle sit inside the briefed plan, and the egress will flow north to stay outside the man-portable air defense engagement zone. She calls rifle in a calm voice and watches the handoff as the seeker holds true. Impact folds dust into the ridge, and the Joint Terminal Attack Controller delivers a short battle damage assessment. Launcher team neutralized. No secondaries. Corridor unaffected. Timing updates follow that support the helicopter commit window, with Chalk 1 planned to push at plus 0.45 and Chalk 2 at plus 1.10 if the lane stays green. Deconfliction and altitude blocks remain intact, and the airspace coordination area keeps the stack orderly. Language stays exact because accuracy is part of safety. 9-line references hold. Restrictions are honored. And clearances sound like cleared as briefed, with the controller in terminal control before any release. The tension does not come from spectacle. It comes from quiet precision under pressure and trust built by doing the same right steps in the same right order. The corridor is safer now. The threat picture is simpler. And the timeline for Chalk 1 stays on track without bending rules or drifting from real-world procedures. Captain Lauren Hale lines up on the mouth of the wadi where terrain folds into tight corners and short walls. Small positions sit close to where friendlies might move and where civilians could be near. She chooses APKWS because this is after 2016 and the system is common on the A-10C. Laser guidance tightens effects and cuts fragmentation compared to unguided rockets, which matters when the corridor runs beside homes and stone. The Joint Terminal Attack Controller keeps Type 2 control and danger close authorization with initials already on record. He confirms final attack headings in the window from 90 to 120 and keeps the aircraft north of the wadi. The talk on uses cues a pilot can actually see from altitude. A pale cut in the ridge and a flat patch beside a dry tree. The picture is simple and visible, so the plan is clean. Hale builds a short cockpit flow that keeps the jet ahead of the fight. Master arm-to-arm and APKWS selected with a confirmed laser code of 1688. The targeting pod sits steady while she checks positive identification and friendlies. She lasers at the right moment for a single shot or a controlled pair, depending on clearance. Then watches timing and spacing so dust does not blind the next check. She keeps the radio language plain and exact. Cleared as briefed under Type 2 with danger close. Then, a calm call for release and an immediate off with altitude and direction. The egress stays north and away from the man-portable air defense engagement zone, which protects the jet and keeps deconfliction intact. The controller delivers a short battle damage assessment that confirms the position is neutralized and that no friendlies are affected. Each release makes the corridor safer where it matters most. Right at the gate. Timing updates support the helicopter commit window for the MH-47G package, so Chalk 1 and Chalk 2 can trust the lane. The threat picture is smaller. The headings are respected. And altitude blocks are holding. This is deliberate and lawful from start to finish. A corridor built through precision, restraint, and trust rather than spectacle or broken orders. Captain Lauren Hale holds north of the wadi and ties her orbit to the corridor she helped shape. Time on target is set, so the first helicopter push meets suppression and precision at the same moment. Chalk 1 will push at plus 0.45. Chalk 2 at plus 110. Both tied to the last update from the ground. Final attack headings stay between 90 and 120, which frames the safe lane and keeps geometry predictable. Deconfliction is clear and confirmed. Altitude blocks separate fixed wing from rotary, and an airspace coordination area gives everyone a shared map. The egress remains north to stay outside the man-portable air defense engagement zone and to keep the stack orderly. Restrictions are restated when needed, so nothing slips in the noise. The radio choreography is brief and confident. Phrases sound like real air to ground talk without drama. Cleared as briefed. Danger close. Corridor green. Headings respected. Hale maintains overwatch and calls emerging threats with plain language, while the Joint Terminal Attack Controller keeps terminal control. She only engages when clearance is issued and the picture is verified. The rotary flight lead checks the lane before each push. Hale confirms status green and a clean egress for both aircraft types. Then resets timing so suppression and precision bracket the descent. Dust builds as the Chinooks start down and the safe lane holds because the timing is right. The approach stays inside the corridor from the first dust cloud to liftoff. Trust is the quiet engine behind the plan. Procedures happen in the same order every time. Even when the clock feels loud and the valley squeezes in, everyone respects headings, airspace, and control. And the pilot keeps her fire disciplined. Chalk 1 is inbound. Chalk 2 is standing by. And the corridor remains green for the final phase under real-world procedures and accurate military language. Chalk 1 drops into the wadi as the dust climbs and turns the air into a brown wall. The MH-47G crew holds visual references on a marked point, manages power with small corrections, and keeps the rate of descent steady. Ramp discipline stays tight while the crew chief watches for drift and keeps hand signals simple. Above them, Captain Lauren Hale in the A-10C holds the corridor and keeps the jet north of the wadi on the briefed headings. On the ground, the Marine Raiders move by a clear order of march, with security on the perimeter. Casualty loading is first, with litters brought straight to the ramp and weapons made safe before stepping inside. The Joint Terminal Attack Controller remains in terminal control with danger close authorization on record and confirms final attack headings between 90 and 120. He keeps the air picture clean so fixed wing and rotary share the sky without crossing paths. Deconfliction is active, not assumed. Altitude blocks separate the stack, and an airspace coordination area gives everyone a common frame. Hale maintains overwatch, calls any emerging threat, and fires only when the controller issues clearance that matches the plan. Timing calls keep the window aligned so Chalk 1 lifts into the dust and Chalk 2 is on 1 minute with a clear lane. The stress is real, but no one chases drama. Dust builds into a wall, and the rotors pull the valley into a storm. Yet, the safe lane stays open because headings, altitude, and control are respected. Egress routes are briefed and keep all aircraft outside the man-portable air defense engagement zone. The corridor holds because each step follows the same order every time. Chalk 1 claws out and turns on the exit while Hale watches the lane and resets timing. Chalk 2 slides in, repeats the brownout procedures, and takes the last patient with the same ramp discipline and perimeter security. Ramps close and the Chinooks lift. Heavy with people who needed this window, the corridor remains green as they leave the wadi. All inside real procedures and accurate language that turns risk into order. The valley settles after the lift like a long breath let out. Radios ease from jagged bursts to steady voices that sound almost ordinary again. Captain Lauren Hale runs a quick fuel state check and safes the weapons while she holds overhead in her A-10C north of the wadi. She stays on station until cleared to depart, so the picture remains covered. The Joint Terminal Attack Controller remains on the net and gives a concise acknowledgement that the work was disciplined and by the book. The on-scene commander adds a simple endorsement that everyone is coming home and that the lane did what it had to do. A final battle damage assessment confirms effects on target, notes that no further fires are required, and records the corridor as cold. Deconfliction stands. The briefed egress is confirmed, and the stack begins to unwind without hurry. Hale keeps the tone humble and accurate as she logs the details and thanks the controller in plain language. She calls the handoffs, respects the airspace, coordination area, and altitude blocks, and exits the area without fanfare on the planned route. The return to base flow is calm and real. Just checklist cadence and clean radios. The close belongs to the Marine Raiders, the Afghan partner element, the MH-47G crews, and the quiet teamwork that made the corridor possible. A reminder that restraint, trust, and doing the job right are what bring people home. The story closes with a simple truth that feels steady and kind. People came home because discipline held when fear tried to rush the room. Clean communication cut through dust and rock. And trust under rules of engagement turned risk into order. Quiet professionalism did the work without asking for attention. This is a salute to Marine raiders who held the line and to the Afghan partner element who stood with them. It is a nod to the MH-47G crews who flew the dust and kept the ramp tight. It is respect for the United States Air Force team that built and held a safe lane with care. Real courage showed up as restraint when the clock felt loud and the valley pressed in. If this kind of honest close air support matters to you, add the word corridor in the comments so we know to bring more. Like and share so more people hear how teamwork sounds when it is done right and with respect. We will keep every military detail correct and keep the language plain and true. Thank you for watching with a calm heart and an open mind. And remember that the best work often leaves no spotlight. Only families seeing people walk back through the door,